Hi guys, have you already watched Lavrov's interview to Tucker Carlson, who's in Moscow again? Lavrov told him that the West is making a mistake in believing that Russia's red lines can be moved, that everybody should take it seriously, and when Putin is talking about red lines, it's not a joke. Well, Putin himself moved those red lines back and forth many times, and nobody actually knows where they are. For example, even before the full-scale invasion in 2021, Putin defined the red lines as follows, quote, "These are our national interests, the interests of our external security, the interests of our internal security, and to prevent anyone from interfering in our elections or other political processes," end of quote. Peskov, Putin's spokesman, defined the violation of such lines as insulting conversations about and with Russia, infringement of the country's economic relations, and other manifestations of unfriendly attitudes. First of all, you can tell that it is very vague. And according to this definition, the West has crossed those red lines many times, starting with sanctions against Russia after the annexation of Crimea, for example. That same year, 2021, Putin called a red line in relations with Ukraine the creation of threats to Russia from Ukraine. According to him, if hypersonic weapons are deployed in Ukraine, the flight time to Moscow would be reduced to 5 minutes and Russia will have to respond accordingly to such a threat. I remind you again, it was 2021. In June of 2024, Putin again outlined red lines for the West. He said that in response to Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory with long-range Western-made missiles, Russia might start supplying weapons to those regions of the world where there will be sensitive strikes on the facilities of those countries that do this against Russia. He also threatened countries helping Ukraine with very serious problems and emphasized that if these states pull together in a war against us, he said, Moscow would act in a similar way. But the fact is that a week earlier, it had become known that Joe Biden had authorized Ukraine to use American weapons supplied to it to retaliate against troops on Russian territory who were shelling Kharkiv region. The next day, Kremlin officials admitted that they were aware of Washington's decision. However, Moscow did not put its threats into action, but tried to make this move look like an insignificant event. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that Ukrainians are not able to use Western missiles on their own at all. Before that, Putin threatened Western countries for handing over tanks to Ukraine. The first German Leopard 2 tanks arrived in Ukraine the same month. However, the delivery of those vehicles to Ukraine did not lead to any of the extraordinary consequences Putin had hinted at. Also, at the very beginning of the war, Putin, speaking at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, refused to outline red lines and said that the Kyiv authorities should establish them themselves, red lines. But at the same time, he threatened Ukraine and the West with some tough actions for their violation. This was very strange, and no one understood what exactly he meant. At the same time, Putin himself doesn't like the statements that Russia only marks red lines, but does not respond in any way to other countries crossing them. So why does he even need that narrative about the red lines? First of all, we should keep in mind that any statement made by Putin is just words. It might mean something, it might not mean anything. He said things to make people talk about him and discuss what he meant. Also, when he threatens the world, he has two purposes, external and internal. The external one is to threat, to show that Russia is unpredictable and it's dangerous to deal with it. The internal purpose is exactly the opposite, to calm down people inside Russia, to show them that everything is under control, that Russia does not want the war. Russia is attacked by the Western world and Putin is doing everything to establish peace. However, this particular message is not very successful because there are aggressive patriots, so-called turbo patriots in Russia, who really want to destroy the rest of the world, and they don't like that Putin is moving those red lines. In other words, he needs that narrative about the red lines to threaten and to show that he will decide where the real red line will be. Therefore, he wants to show himself as someone absolutely unpredictable, who can put the label of a red line to anything and anytime.